really hope I'm not going to end up with bugs on me. Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here to do 2 cozy autumn themed book tags. So do you remember like way back when I did my reading and channel goals, I mentioned like I want to catch up on tags, so I'm going to do some like 2 tags in 1 videos. If you don't remember, that's fine because I also forgot, but we're bringing it back today. I've been tagged in 2 autumn book tags that I'm really excited to do, and I thought I would do them in 1 video. I will put timestamps down below in case you only care about watching one of them, but I'm really excited. Let's jump into the tags. I also have notes that I'm working from, so like I guess all of my like mini hand gestures are going to be kind of one-handed, or if I'm holding a book, I guess I won't be able to gesture at all, so this will be an interesting exercise for me. Also, again, filming outside, I'm not sure if I like it. We'll see. So the first one I'm going to do is the Cozy Autumn book tag that was created by The Book Bell, and I was tagged by Mary from Mary Among Stories. I will link both of them down below. Which number 1 is what book always reminds you of fall or autumn? And for that one, I have Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. I have loved all of McLemore's books that I have read, and this is one of my favorites. It might be my top favorite, I don't know. But I do kind of associate this with autumn because even though I think this book has a lot of kind of seasonal vibes, a lot of it takes place involving like orchards, like apple orchards specifically, and like just, I don't know, the weather's starting to get a little bit cooler, and there's a lot of like atmospheric kind of forest vibes, which I also associate with fall or autumn, so I'm gonna go with this one. I love this book, I love this author. Please read them if you haven't. Number 2 is what is your favorite autumnal book cover? And for that one, I have The Forest of Stars by Heather Kastner. This is definitely one of my favorite autumnal book covers. I do really like this one, and as I mentioned, I think I mentioned this before, but I wasn't like initially I was kind of like put off by the like clown vibes, but I grew to actually really love this cover. I really like the back as well. The spine is pretty cool. I just really love this color combination, and this is a book that I still want to get to this autumn. Number 3 is what is your favorite autumnal drink to read with? And I'm kind of an equal opportunity tea and coffee person, so like I really enjoy drinking tea or coffee while I read. Something I've also really enjoyed that I've just gotten back into is hot chai lattes. Really like those, so that is another one. So basically I just like hot drinks, especially if they're kind of seasonal. Hot cider is also delicious. I'm very excited about hot cider season. Number 4 is do you prefer to read late at night or early in the morning? Technically I guess it's both, but I definitely consider myself a like late at night reader. I tend to do a lot of my reading like from about 10 p.m. to like 2 a.m., which tells you a little something about how my sleep schedule is going, which is not good. But yeah, I'm definitely like, I do read during the day, but I tend to read a lot more at night, and that's kind of what I would prefer. Although ideally I wouldn't be staying up quite so late, but what are you gonna do? Change your sleep schedule? I don't think so. Number 5, Halloween is coming. What is your favorite spooky read? Okay, so I have a few for this question. One of them I have talked about quite a bit recently, but I just loved it, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have a whole like reasons to read video. I thought this was a fantastic horror novel. It's a gothic horror novel specifically, and I just think it was brilliant. Like the characterization was wonderful. I always love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing. I think the things that she used the horror elements to comment on was just, I think that was just done really well. Things like colonization and eugenics, and like using the horror elements to say something important. I just found that really clever and really thoughtful. And just like the whole general atmosphere of this book was on point. It is a horror novel, so it is like quite scary at times for me, but I still was able to really enjoy it. And I think part of the reason, which I talk about in that video, I think part of the reason that even though I'm kind of a scaredy cat, I was able to really enjoy that horror novel is that she did use those things for a purpose. Like it wasn't just to gross you out or shock you. It fit into the story and was very like important story-wise. I also want to mention the Small Spaces series by Catherine Arden. This is actually book 2, Dead Voices, but I especially want to talk about the first one, which is Small Spaces, because that one is set in autumn, and just the atmosphere is so good. I actually have been buddy reading this series with my friend Katie from A Sea of Tomes, and I'm just loving it. This is probably one of my biggest surprises of the year because I really hated the 2 what's the name of the series? The Winter Night trilogy. I read 2 books in that series and really didn't like them. So I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about these, even though they are like a very different premise and they're middle grade, but I have just loved the series. In the first book, our main character Ollie sees somebody throwing out a book, and when she picks it up and starts reading it, it's a really spooky story. And then the next day she goes on a field trip, and things start happening that are mirroring what happened in the book. And just like the spooky vibes were great. The developing friendship in the first book and continuing friendships in this book are just wonderful. Ollie's the main character I really loved, and the book is also a really powerful exploration of grief, and like letting go while still remembering the people that you care about. yeah, I just think it did so many things so well. I would not have predicted that I loved that book as much as I did because of my previous experience with Catherine Arden. But yeah, definitely recommend this series. And I know I'm holding up book 2, but especially if you want some like autumnal spooky vibes, definitely recommend book 1, which is Small Spaces. And finally, my last answer for this question, if you want something that's like not spooky exactly, but kind of like atmospheric and like kind of unsettling, I guess, I have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. We just recently did our Past It Classics live show, which Taylor hosted on her channel, so I will link that down below. I know this book is not for everyone. I know a lot of people hate it, and honestly, fair. I really understand all of the criticisms for this book, but there are just things about it that make it work for me. Like, it's not a favorite of all time, but this is a book that really, I think, is going to stick with me. I think the writing is gorgeous. I think Emily Bronte's ability to write in beautiful ways about really messed up relationships is actually very impressive. It's definitely a book full of unlikable people. Like, arguably none of these people deserve a happy ending, but you still feel at least a moment of sympathy for all of them, which I think is a mark of good writing and characterization. And just like the like wuthering like moors and everything, that vibe is very autumnal, I feel like. So yeah, like this is like a semi-recommendation because I know a lot of people don't like it. I do. I actually much prefer this book to Jane Eyre, but I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion, at least it seems to me. But if you feel like this might be something you'd enjoy, I think it's definitely perfect to pick up this time of year. Number 6 is, what is the ultimate comfort read for you? And I have like a few books that I kind of go to as like comfort reads, or specifically comfort rereads. But one of the ones that I think is definitely the most that way for me is The Blue Castle by Ella Montgomery. I just adore this book, and it has gotten me through some pretty hard times. So like on top of just really loving the story, it's got all these associations now of like comfort and calm and like helping me get through things. So I feel like it's kind of the best kind of like cycle, like whatever the opposite of a vicious cycle is, I guess. But I really love that book. We follow our main character Valency, and she's grown up in a pretty unpleasant family situation. Like, it's not abusive or anything, but she's just pretty desperately unhappy, and she's kind of just given up on being happy. Like, people just push her around. They don't seem to care about her very much. They don't seem to care about what she wants, and she's just miserable. And then one day she gets some very bad medical news, and in a weird way, it's kind of like the way that Valency sees it, this is the best thing that could have happened to her, because all of a sudden she doesn't care what people think about her. She can be honest with people about what she thinks of them or what she likes or doesn't like, and she starts like living her life. The premise makes it sound like it'd be quite a depressing book, but it's really not. And there definitely are like sad moments in this book. I don't want to make it sound like it's like a completely happy thing. Like, there's one part where she takes care of a girl who is dying, I think of tuberculosis, and that part is pretty sad, but those scenes are handled with so much compassion and warmth, and like they are sad, but I think the way they are done makes them like okay to get through. So yeah, like there's definitely like parts in this book that are not what you would think of as like a comforting or like cozy read, but like taken as a whole, the story is one that I think is very, very cozy. Number 7, what is your favorite autumnal reading snack? So if we're talking like fall specific, which I think this question is, one of my favorite snacks to have this time of year is pecans that you roast, and then you like sprinkle them with chili powder, and there might be cinnamon in them. I can't remember. I haven't made them for like a year, so I don't exactly remember, but it's like super simple recipe, and they are just delicious. I love them. One of my favorite snacks. Very excited to make more of them this year. Number 8 is, what is your favorite autumnal candle to burn whilst reading? And for that one, I actually have one that I think my dad got me this. Was it for Christmas or for my birthday? I don't remember, but it's called Old Books, and it's supposed to smell like leather book bindings, aged paper, and intrigue. And it's definitely like very kind of like clean and sharp, and there's like a little bit of like evergreen or fir tree maybe. Anyway, it smells really good. Definitely kind of like fall into winter smell, and I really like that one. I think it was also like a really sweet gift for my dad, because like the fact that he found a bookish candle for me, which is something that he very much is like not a frequent purchaser of, let's put it that way. I just think that's really sweet and thoughtful. Number 9 is, when you're not reading, what is your favorite autumnal activity? That would probably be knitting. I tend to do that year round, but I mean, especially it's nice and colder weather, and maybe also watching movies. I don't really watch like a ton of movies or TV anymore, but there are definitely some like movies that I really love that I like return to again and again, although I don't know if that's like autumn specific. And finally, number 10 is, what is on your autumn or fall reading list? And good question. Definitely The Forest of Stars, which I talked about earlier. I also would really like to get to the first Tilly and the Book Wanderers book before the end of the year. So I guess that's like autumn and winter. and I don't really know any other ones. I'll obviously be continuing to read along with past classics. I also recently read my first Agatha Christie book and I liked that, so I might try and read some more Agatha Christie this fall. Yeah, I'm keeping it kind of open. Trying to be a little more open to mood reading lately. I feel like that's something I kind of need right now, and I'm really bad at it, honestly. So even when I do TBRs, I'm gonna try and be a little more forgiving of like just picking up something that I'm in the mood for. And the next tag is called the Autumn Book Tag, and that was created by Maddie at Miss Maddie Chats, and I was tagged by the lovely Hannah and Lynn Hermione. I will again link both of them down below. So the first one is Candles, Atmospheric Books to Read by Candlelight. And actually I'm realizing I have several answers for many of these, but one of them I want to mention is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I know that is a very polarizing book. I know several people who have really hated it, but I really liked it. It's a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. It has kind of some like horror fantasy elements. Like I don't know what genre you would classify this as, but I would definitely call it like split between horror and fantasy. And the main character, her sisters have started dying in really horrible and mysterious ways, and people are starting to think that there's a curse on their family. And so the book is about her trying to figure out what's going on, and just like the atmosphere, I think this book is really, really good at. I really liked the writing, and the world building I thought was good. There were a couple of things about the ending I didn't love, and I didn't really like the love interest like at all. But other than that, I really liked this. I thought this was a really excellent debut. Again, I understand it's not for everybody, but I think that that one has like some really great atmosphere, like definitely more on like the spooky atmospheric side. And I also want to mention Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin for this question. This was actually a present from my lovely friend Shelby from Read and Find Out, and I just love this. This is like definitely if you want something kind of like fairy tale-esque. It's got beautiful illustrations, which I always talk about, but this is just like, it's a retelling of Snow White and Rose Red, and it's definitely very like classic fairy tale feeling while also having a few kind of added elements, and it's definitely on the like more cozy candlelight side, I guess, although there are a couple of like kind of creepy moments, but overall I would say this is a really like cozy kind of fairy tale middle grade. Next is Coraline, and that is Spooky Reads. So I do want to mention Small Spaces again by Catherine Arden. I will just refer to you to the previous book tag that I did in this video, so I don't just repeat myself. But I also want to mention kind of more of a psychological horror, and that is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, I think is her name. That's like a very famous feminist short story that I had never read before this year, and I thought it was really fantastic. Definitely short, but it really packs a punch. It's about our main character, who is a young woman who is suffering from what we would call postpartum depression. I don't remember what they called it at the time, but as a remedy, her husband takes her to this country house and basically doesn't let her do anything or see anyone or engage in any kind of like mental stimulation or like even talking to people who are not like him, or like maybe the servants. And so she's basically stuck in her bedroom all day, and she starts noticing weird things about this yellow wallpaper. And like this is just a really chilling story. It also is very like scary in a very like modern or like believable way, because this is actually how women were treated by the medical professionals for things like postpartum depression and like hysterics or like whatever. Like this is actually like this kind of isolation and like complete control over their lives is actually what the doctors would like recommend. And yeah, like I think the writing is really good. Like the atmosphere and like the like premise of this story is just chilling and really well done. The ending really packs a punch, so yeah, definitely recommend that one if you haven't read it. Next is Cinnamon Rolls, and that is Cute Autumnal Reads. So this one was a little bit tricky because like I feel like the atmospheric autumn books I tend to think of are atmospheric in a like slightly creepy or I don't know, like mysterious way, I guess. But I do have a book I want to recommend, and that is The Lady and the Highwayman by Sarah M. Eden. I've actually pre-ordered the second book in the series because I'm really excited for it. Also, it's a couple that I think I'm really gonna love because I kind of like predicted it in this book, and I was like excited by that prospect. So when I heard that that's who the that's the romance that was going to be in book 2, I was very excited. But back to book 1. This is a dual perspective novel, and we follow a male and female lead who are both Penny Dreadful writers, except that the woman is actually using an alias, and she uses the proceeds from her stories to support her school for girls, where she provides education, especially for kind of like lower middle class girls who like wouldn't be admitted to like the fancy elite. So she wants to take care of them and give them a proper education, so that's what she uses her money for. And then the male lead, he also uses his money for good. He's part of the Dread Penny Society, and basically what they do is it's like a society of penny dreadful writers who use the proceeds to take care of like orphans or to like free indentured servants. So things like that, taking care of orphans and widows and poor people, and especially people who tend to slip through the cracks. So both of them use their money for good, but they don't know who the other person is, or that the other person is doing kind of a similar thing. So the male lead actually ends up kind of teaming up with the woman. I'm so sorry, I can't remember their character names right now, but he actually teams up with the woman and to try and track down this man who is starting to become more popular. And of course Mr. King, this writer, is actually the woman under a pen name, so they get thrown together. They end up developing a relationship, and the romance is just super cute. I really love the plot elements in this book where it's like using literature to like financially support positive change. I just think that is super cool. So that one is definitely kind of like cute and cozy, and even though it does deal with some like more serious topics, I would definitely overall call it a like a cozy kind of read. Very much excited for book 2. Next is Haunted House, book you'd buddy read because you're too scared. And now the thing with this one is like, if I'm that scared of a book, I probably just don't plan on reading it. So I'm gonna kind of do what Hannah did and interpret scared to be like intimidated, because I definitely have an answer for that one, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This is the giant unabridged edition, and yeah, I've been meaning to read this for literal years, and finally me and my friend Mary Margaret from MM's Musings, we have made plans to buddy read this, so that will be happening at some point in the future. So I definitely think that's going to like keep me focused and make this a little less intimidating. But what happens when I read this and I need like a new book for every intimidating book question? I don't know, I'll have to think of something else. Next is Pumpkin Spice Latte, and that is basic tropes we crave in autumn. So I'm kind of like an equal opportunity, like, or all year round trope lover. Like generally if I love a trope, I want to read it all year round. But I did kind of think of one where I think autumn and kind of into winter, I think like I especially enjoy this, and that is like small town settings. Or not even necessarily like small town as in like a small town contemporary. Like I feel like that term is used a lot for contemporary romance, which is not necessarily what I mean. I just like settings that are not big cities, essentially. I don't really find big cities as fun to read about. I don't find the stories interesting. I feel like a lot of times they're set in LA or New York, so it kind of gets repetitive after a while. A couple of exceptions though, I did really enjoy Somewhere Only We Know, which was a big city that was in Hong Kong. But that aside, I do tend to like kind of smaller settings. I'm trying to think now of a recent like small town book that I read. I would say like Dark and Deepest Red by Anne Marie McLemore. It's dual timeline, and I think both of them feel kind of like small communities, sometimes in a bad way because the past timeline involves some pretty intolerant townspeople, but I really enjoyed the like small community of the modern day setting. I actually feel like a lot of their books kind of have those like small town vibes. I feel like the fact that it was kind of a smaller community, I think that played into the magical realism feeling, like this ordinary life but with a little bit of magic. For some reason I feel like those things go really well together, so I really liked that. And finally we have Sweater Weather, and that one is binge-worthy cozy reads. I feel like I've been like over explaining a lot of these questions, but the reason that this one was kind of hard is because generally if it's a cozy read like series, I don't actually want to marathon those all at once. I kind of want to spread them out for like when I need that like cozy comfort. But I did think of one that I think works for this. So I picked the Charlie Bone series by Jenny Nimmo. This is a middle grade series involving a magical school, and the school is definitely more sinister than I think some of those tend to be. I don't talk about this series a lot because I feel like it's a little hard to recommend to people. I feel like this one came out around a time when a lot of fantasies, especially middle grade fantasies involving magical schools, were coming out. So people kind of wrote this off as a knockoff, but I don't think it is. I think it does a lot of things really well. I think it does some really interesting things. I love the characters, and I do feel like this is one that you kind of want to marathon, especially because some of the books end in a way where it's not like a cliffhanger. I don't think I would call it a cliffhanger, but it's like you want to know how things are going to develop like pretty quickly. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I actually meant to start rereading this series. Was it last December or the year before that, and I never did, so maybe this will have to happen this year finally. But yeah, I really enjoy this series, and I do think it's kind of cozy feeling despite the fact that some pretty dark things can happen. I don't know, and I think partly this is like I have fond memories of reading this series, which might contribute to the coziness. But yeah, there is something else about it that I feel like is kind of a cozy read, even though I can't really articulate that, which is such a helpful way to answer a book tag question, right? Okay, everybody, so those are the Cozy Autumn book tag and the Autumn book tag. As for people I'm going to tag, I'm going to tag Huck from Badger Reads, Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly, and Olivia-Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophes. If you would like to do either or both of these tags, I tag you, but if you don't feel like it, no worries. And of course, I'll tag anyone else who wants to do these as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye! Sorry, I feel like my volume was fluctuating quite a bit because I don't want neighbors to hear me, so hopefully they didn't.